So the global economy has lost and found about $6 trillion within the span of a week. The most intense global trade war in modern history has been threatened and then paused and then threatened and then paused and then threatened and then paused again. 7 different times now. By the time you are watching this video, that number might have been changed again. Global economic uncertainty is at record highs, and while the stock market may have recovered, for now, real people are starting to feel the consequences of this little game. As layoffs are accelerated, hiring is frozen, prices are increasing, and interest rates are spiking. Now, I already know what you are thinking. There is nothing about these trade wars that hasn't been said already, and that's actually exactly the problem. For a variety of reasons, even highly respectable outlets and experts have been trying to find what the real meaning is behind the flip-flop trade war. Be it a secret plan to reduce interest rates before we refinance our debt, redefining the role of the US dollar as a global reserve, or just some 40 Uno negotiating tactic. These explanations are very entertaining and appealing to people who want to make sense of a situation that could really impact their personal financial situation. But if you want to look for deeper meaning where there is none, you should have majored in art history, not gone into journalism, economics, or business. Sometimes bad ideas are just bad ideas, and not acknowledging this has caused problems in politics and business well before we started putting tariffs on penguins.
President Trump's Commerce Secretary says the Commander-in-Chief plans to go ahead with his reciprocal tariff.
Today, Trump defended the tariff, saying that he thinks they'll make the country stronger.
The president needs to reset global trade.
Somebody had to do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate.
We have our mission, our main thing that we do is curate and create culture.
You're never going to see as much volume and as many trades on the day with the biggest move.
They need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75.
What's going to happen with the market, I can't tell you, but I can tell you our country has gotten a lot stronger.
Now, I want to make it clear that it doesn't matter, or at the very least it shouldn't matter, if you personally love or hate this administration. The businesses we are going to talk about, or even your own boss. Bad ideas are just bad ideas, right? Well, of course not. But bad ideas are some of the best opportunities to get ahead, as long as you know how to use them. So, we may as well use this whole manufactured crisis as a learning opportunity. Something that you should be personally aware of is that if you move up in the corporate ladder or start to have any kind of success in business, is that it's going to be much easier to find people who agree with anything you say. The trope of the yes man exists for a reason.
I see it all now. You're just a bunch of yes men. I was making the wrong moves and you were too gutless to tell me. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes, sir. That answer.
Now, beyond the obvious problem of subordinates not wanting to clash with people that pay their salaries, or business leaders not wanting to insult the government that regulates them, there are 3 other, far more subtle but equally effective ways that bad ideas get so much support. The first problem is that common sense is really hard to sell. If you have been paying attention to the news surrounding the trade wars, the Department of Government Efficiency, or even just regular run-of-the-mill corporate incompetence, you might have noticed that there is an almost endless supply of news and commentary claiming that even bizarre ideas actually kind of make sense. Now, some of this is just biased media reporting, nothing new there, but a lot of it is just people desperate to stand out in the marketplace of ideas. Our dumb little monkey brains love to see order and chaos, so the message that something that seems extremely scary is actually just part of a greater plan has been a great sales tactic for, well, all of human history. My friend Dr. Yuri Shasfort, who runs the channel Money and Macro, made a video last week breaking down the rationale behind resetting the global trade order. That video got a lot of attention because it looked like it was a defense of something that across the board has been pretty unpopular. Now, that video was actually a breakdown of the economic thinking that the administration is probably working off of, explained from the perspective of a real academic economist. But it was also one of his most viewed videos ever, because in an ocean of news about how nothing makes sense anymore, even a hint of order is highly desirable. Now, Money and Macro's video was actually very good, so I will forgive him for being a little bit bold with his thumbnail. After all, that's what YouTube is. But it does demonstrate the point. Technology has made the marketplace of ideas open to anybody, but that's also made attention a valuable commodity. For better or worse, the best way to stand out from the noise is to stand out on ideas. Now, Yuri was using his powers for good, but there are plenty of other people willing to genuinely support bad ideas, for a price. In fact, one multi-billion-dollar industry in particular has made it their entire operating model. Corporate consultants have been having their biggest years ever. During the pandemic, they couldn't grow fast enough because companies and even entire governments wanted smart-looking MBA grads to tell them how to set up work-from-home functions, adapt to new market conditions, and manage the crisis itself. In the UK, a report revealed that 2,300 management consultants from 73 different companies were contracted to work on the government's test and trace system, with £375 million spent on consultancy for this project alone. That meant for just this one project, the UK government had hired more consultants than people who worked in their own Treasury department. We do exactly the same thing here back in the United States of political campaign donations. The only difference is our healthcare system is so disjointed that it's hard to get hard figures for the entire country. Right now, consulting firms are doing record business on integrating artificial intelligence into companies that can't figure it out for themselves. And of course, consulting firms are also billing thousands of hours to help companies deal with this trade war. In theory, consulting like this does have a role to play. Organizations are probably only going to need to react to a once-in-a-generation pandemic once in a generation. AI systems can be set up by a team that comes in, gets it done, and then does it for the next company without requiring full-time positions. But it rarely actually happens like this. The best way to secure lots of billable hours as a consultant is to find out what management already wants to do, and then create a report on why that is the only logical solution. McKinsey has published multiple articles on why working remotely is the best way to increase company efficiency, and they have also posted multiple articles about why returning to the office is essential for companies. So no matter what, the company can just point to the article that agrees with the decision they have already made. Now that's just consulting. Bad ideas can take you much further than that. So it's time to learn how money works to find out how to use bad ideas for profit and career advancement. This week's video is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. Behind every great video on this channel is a team that works hard to make it happen, and finding the right people for that team is no small feat. Whether you're building a business or just need rockstar talent to back you up, hiring the right folks really matters. That's where ZipRecruiter comes in. Their matching technology is seriously impressive. It helps you connect with top-tier candidates fast, so you're not stuck drowning in resumes. Personally, when I'm looking to hire, I want great people on board yesterday. ZipRecruiter's smart tools start promoting your job to qualified applicants right away. That kind of speed can make a real difference. Hire experienced people who are excited about what they do with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employees who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to this exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/howmoneyworks. One more time, that's ZipRecruiter.com/howmoneyworks. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. With enough power and money, finding support for bad ideas is extremely easy. You might have already heard the story, but it's extremely funny and worth repeating as the perfect example of working backwards from a solution. President Trump has been a longtime advocate of protectionist policies to preserve domestic businesses and capabilities.
The fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States.
He has been speaking out about this for a long time before he was president, and hot take alert, he kind of has a point. Globalization has been great for people with lots of money who could take advantage of new markets to sell their products into, global investment, and outsourced supply chains. But it wasn't as good for people who depended on their jobs that were getting outsourced. As someone who was born into wealth and stood to benefit directly from global markets and global investments into his businesses and properties, it could be argued that Trump's support for protections was purely altruistic. Now, maybe that's true, or maybe he just found a popular sounding message. You guys feel free to shout it out in the comments. Either way, identifying a problem is one thing. Working out a solution is the hard part, and the current architect of America's trade policy is an economist called Peter Navarro, who Trump first identified after his son-in-law found his book Death by China on Amazon. It's clearly an emotive title that vibes well with the idea that China is an enemy that must be crushed. Now, you are welcome to make up your own mind about the contents of the book. The documentary that is based off it is also available for free here on YouTube. So as always, I will leave a link to both of those down below. Now, even with the very heavy title, none of that by itself would be very interesting. Politicians rely on policy advisors all the time. But the only difference is, Navarro cited another economist called Ron Vara throughout his work who turned out to be completely made up. Ron Vara is just the letters in Navarro rearranged, so he wasn't even trying that hard. So yeah, some of the most impactful economic policies of the last century have been based on ideas supported by a man, supported by a book, supported by an apparition. It would be funny if so many people weren't going to lose their jobs over it. But it is a perfect example of how supporting contrarian ideas is a great way to get opportunities that level heads might not. Whether we like it or not, Peter Navarro and his imaginary friend are now some of the most influential economists in the world. There are only a handful of people in history that ever get to enact their policies on this scale, and he got that opportunity by supporting the right message. So yeah, next time senior management at your company has a questionable idea, make sure to get behind it wholeheartedly. It may hurt the business, but your resume will look great. And that's the third and most important reason why bad ideas get so much support. Bad ideas aren't allowed to just be bad ideas anymore. One thing that cheered me up last week while watching my life savings take a little rollercoaster ride was the tweets from people praising the stock market rally after telling their followers that the stock market didn't matter, after previously claiming that the stock market was the leading indication of a strong economy. Now obviously this hypocrisy was understandably criticized since most of this was just driven by partisanship, but it's also important people that can change their mind. The harder we make it for people to admit that they were wrong and reverse a harmful decision, the more likely they are to dig their heels in and overcommit to a bad idea. If you are managing people, this can be one of the most important skills to develop. You don't want people to take advantage of you, but you also don't want them to hide mistakes out of fear of reprisal. Now, government officials in the country's highest office should be held to a higher standard than subordinates, but there are a lot of factors that have made it extremely difficult for them to reverse bad decisions. Navarro, for example, has a PhD from Harvard, where his thesis was on the true motives behind corporate charities, something we have critiqued here on this very channel. But now he is probably only going to be known as the guy that made up an expert on trade disputes. Expanding outwards, even on trade protections themselves, are probably going to get a bad rep from this. There is a lot to be said in support of protecting local industries and making sure that average American workers aren't forced to make sacrifices just so multinational corporations remain competitive. However, any new protectionist proposals in the future are going to be challenged by people pointing out that it's just another tariff war, so why would we want to do that again? Smart people have bad ideas all the time. It doesn't mean that they are automatically wrong about everything. And even if the solution to a problem is bad, it doesn't mean the problem no longer exists. But increasingly polarizing news and shortened attention spans means that this is probably going to happen more and more. So, how do you take advantage of this? Well, if you're going to support an idea in your own career, make sure you get behind it without being the face of it. Express support to your bosses, but do it quietly so you'll get all the rewards of being on board, but can't be used as a scapegoat when it inevitably all comes crashing down. I really don't want to have to keep uncovering everything coming out of Washington, and I want to emphasize that we called out the last administration too. But on a channel that's made for highlighting dumb ideas in business, finance, and economics, it's hard to make a video about much else when these actions make everything irrelevant by comparison. I have put together a full collection of everything you need to know about the flip-flop trade war, so if you want to get up to speed, go and watch that next. And make sure to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.